Alright, so Jon Jones has been the most discussed fighter throughout this news week by a pretty substantial margin. And it does make sense, seeing as a fight between him and Tom Aspinall is probably the most in-demand matchup that the UFC has at the current moment. And honestly, things started off on a pretty positive note when earlier this week, Joe Rogan leaked some insider information that Dana White was willing to pay the $30 million fight purse that Jones has been demanding.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be Aspinall. I think they're trying to come to some sort of an agreement. The rumor is that he wants $30 million, and that the UFC's going to pay it. Hopefully. I hope they pay it.
Okay, so Joe, who clearly has direct access to a ton of insider information, claims that the UFC is willing to ante up on Jon's monstrous $30 million request. Sounds good for us fans, right? Well, unfortunately, on the most recent JRE, Rogan actually walked back his statement after saying Dana reached out to him directly.
And I did hear that rumor. And I did hear that the UFC said yes, but it is not true. So Dana contacted me, said that rumor's bullshit. So I felt obligated to tell everybody that was a fake rumor. Yeah.
What do you think the amount is that Jon Jones would fight him for, or do you think it's an amount?
Well, apparently Jon is thinking about retiring.
Yeah.
And he should. I mean, he's going to have to someday. He should. I'm not saying he should retire. I'm saying he should think about it.
Look, I know that some people are going to hear this and immediately take it as face value, but let's be real here. This is Dana White we're talking about. Dana is infamous for his variety of negotiation tactics that he uses in order to get fighters to bend to his will, and I get the feeling that this might be one of them. If you're a UFC fan, then you'll probably have heard him at one point or another say that a fighter doesn't want to fight, which he uses so often that it's literally become a meme at this point. I mean, just off the top of my head, I've heard Dana use this line with Nate Diaz, Dustin Poirier, Jorge Masvidal, and Jon Jones. Yes, Dana has literally used this line with Jon in the past when Jon expressed criticism towards the UFC's pay structure. Dana just loves to pull this supreme gaslight maneuver whenever a fighter isn't pleased with their current contract, and the fucked up part about it is it almost always works. In fact, the only time I can think of when this tactic didn't work is when Francis Ngannou said adios to the UFC during his feud with Dana. The way I see it, this is more than likely Dana tapping into his favorite trick in the book where he tries to make a fighter look like they're scared to fight so that they accept a much lesser contract. Like, obviously Dana wants to make Jones vs. Aspinall happen this year. It's probably the biggest fight that he can reasonably make, seeing as Conor McGregor's future in the UFC is so precarious. But let's be real here, there is no way that Dana is willing to fork out $30 million for Jon to fight. I mean, this would be the largest payout in UFC history by far, way larger than anything that Conor McGregor or Brock Lesnar were ever paid for a single fight. And although a fight between Jon and Tom would definitely be a big fight, it definitely wouldn't attract the amount of attention or interest that a McGregor or Lesnar fight could. And mind you, when I say all this, I'm just speaking from Dana's perspective here. As a fan, I absolutely think that he should just give Jon the money. It's not my 30 mil, I don't give a shit. Regardless, the optimistic side of me is just hoping that this is a necessary evil that will ultimately lead to Jon signing on the dotted line. Because even if he's not going to get the full 30 million, I think there's a really good chance that Dana's still willing to pay him a huge amount of money to make this fight happen. Obviously, I am not a UFC fighter, so I have no clue what price points Dana could be throwing at Jon, but Daniel Cormier seems to agree with me that Dana is probably trying to meet Jon somewhere in the middle when it comes to pay.
$30 million was literally a world away from anything we were making. Rogan thinks that the UFC will pay the $30 million to get Jon Jones in there with Tom Aspinall. I'm not sure he gets to 30, but if you ask for 30 and you get 20 or you get 15, that's a win for Jon Jones on his way out, right? Especially living in Albuquerque where everything is so dang cheap. I mean, it's not like he's not living in California.
Honestly, I feel like DC's spitting facts here, and I'm hoping that this is what's happening between Jon and Dana as we speak. Jon's original demand is 30 mil, then maybe Dana responds with 15 mil, then Jon shoots back with 25 mil, and who knows, maybe Dana will give a final offer at 20 million or something, and then they're able to shake hands on that. I don't know, I have no idea how these things work. All I know is that Dana does want this fight to happen this year, and this guy has a pretty damn good track record of making big fights happen. I don't know, you can call me naive, but I am optimistic that Dana saying that Jon wants to retire is simply par for the course for negotiations such as this. But on the other hand, who knows? Maybe Jon actually is afraid of fighting Tom and would rather retire than meet him in the octagon. Of course, fans have been saying that Jon's been ducking Tom for several months now and that he's afraid to fight him, but just this week, Jan Blachowicz publicly stated that even he thinks that Jones is afraid of fighting Aspinall.
But what did you make of it when you heard Jon calling out Alex of all people?
I think he does
do this because, Alex Perez now he's like big star in the UFC, everybody love him. So he know what he doing, but I believe he should to fight against Aspinall, but I think he a little bit afraid of him, because Aspinall is someone who can really stop him and beat him.
Yeah,
That's what maybe he believe. But that's what I think, that he believe if he can, fight against Pereira, he can take him down, control him, maybe something like this. With Aspinall, it will be not so easy.
Look, do I believe that Jon is afraid of fighting Tom? I don't know. I don't know if I would say that he's afraid necessarily, as much as I would say that he understands the threat that Aspinall poses to his legacy. Both athletically and technically, I really do believe that Tom would be the toughest fight that Jon would ever face, and personally, I would pick Aspinall to beat Jones if they were to fight in 2025. And even though Jon has done some really stupid and awful things in his outside life, when it comes to fighting, he really is as smart as they come. So when we hear Jon call out Alex Pereira or Derek Lewis for his next fight, I think that we can agree that Jon is lobbying for those matches because he knows that he has distinct advantages over them, whereas with Tom, he knows that he'd probably end up struggling a little bit more. And hey, don't get me wrong, no one's pretending that they wouldn't be stoked to see Jones versus Pereira happen. I know that I'd be stoked to watch that fight, but in the interest of watching the best fight the best, I feel like the only reasonable matchup for Jon in his next fight is Aspinall. And much like how Shogun Rua gave a young and hungry Jon Jones the opportunity to fight for the belt, even though it was a ridiculously risky matchup for him, I really feel like Jon should do the same for Tom. And I understand that Jones says that he doesn't want to fight Aspinall because Tom annoys him or that he thinks he's an asshole or whatever, but doesn't that make it all the better of a reason to fight the guy? Jon had massive beef with Rashad Evans because they were former training partners that had a falling out, and that ended up being one of Jon's biggest selling pay-per-views of his career. Then you have his beef with DC, where they absolutely hated each other, and both of those fights are literally the highest selling pay-per-views that he's ever done, and probably made Jon a whole lot of money through pay-per-view points. I mean, who knows if Jones vs. Aspinall would be able to top 860k pay-per-views the way that Jones vs. DC2 did, but I'd argue that it would at least do very solid numbers. My point here is that Jon has already set the precedent for being willing to fight guys that he doesn't like, so him claiming that he doesn't want to give Aspinall any shine doesn't really hold that much water for me. And if it's a big money fight that Jon is looking for, then I'd argue that Tom is one of the best options that he has to make a huge payday besides a fight with Alex Pereira. But at a very simple level, it's not right that Jon is holding up the division by fighting Stipe Miocic, who is out of the game for damn near 4 years. Look, Jon is the undisputed heavyweight champion, but there's an interim champion in his division in Tom Aspinall. That means that Jon is obligated to fight Tom in order to unify the belt. And if Jones is so concerned about his legacy to the point where he doesn't want to risk damaging his resume that he's built up over the years by fighting Aspinall, then very well. Of course, I'll be disappointed if this fight never happens, but I can live with never seeing it. But if that's going to be the case, then Jon should just relinquish the belt now so that he can pursue the final fights that interest him, and so that Tom can start defending his title against worthy contenders. However, as I said earlier in the video, I'm staying hopeful that this is all simply part of the process in order to get Jon to accept a fight. Is he going to get paid $30 million? Probably not, but I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that he and Dana can find a happy compromise that can make this fight work. Anyways, that's the video for today. Definitely let me know what you think about the current Jon Jones situation. Do you think that he's afraid of fighting Tom Aspinall, or do you think that he's willing to step up if given the right price? As always, if you liked the video, then like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.